These are the old man rants.
Racism and ignorance. This is a long one, so let me explain. I am a U.S. citizen. My children are Canadian. I don't want them to think all Americans are as stupid as some of these people as Trump. Try to make it to the end. There are some very offensive things said by ignorant yet educated, or so-called educated individuals. Some of these men actually regretted what they said before they died. I should also say that up front, I am a light-skinned human, and I'm embarrassed every day by the stupid things other light-skins do or say. That's what happens when a group gets power drunk and tries to control the whole goddamn planet. I was not there, but if it helps, I'm sorry. Those guys were dicks. Now, light skin, I should maybe clarify for you. I see the correct term of what society calls white. No one is white or black because we are all the same hues available to us, just shades of difference of brown. And some say, oh, well, then how about like the Asian yellow? Yellow's in brown. Brown is a mixed color. Try to make it with crayons using the basic colors. And you can do a lot with brown. It's got a lot of variants. Maybe that's why nature chose it. It's easy to hide. But, you have to believe then that nature had something to do with it. So, if not, please go away. Those of you that believe it, sorry again. I will be using the term ignorant a lot in this. Because I want to believe that these borderline evil concepts and perversions of science to explain what you want to believe was from ignorance. Ignorance is a lack of education. Because I want to believe these educated men would not have tried so hard to destroy the human race as these uneducated or ignorant fallacies of racism have done. Either that, or some of these men were truly evil. Won't use long, but that's why I call these my old man rants. A species is often defined as the largest group of organisms in which two individuals are capable of reproducing fertile offspring, typically using sexual reproduction. It was surprising to find that currently race is a classification of subspecies. I personally see race as the same as species. The terminology is in regards to classifications of animals. Oh, and in case you didn't know, humans are animals. No better or worse, just a different type of animal. Our lives are filled with more drama. So who's better now? Okay. But also to comment on that, reason I see race as species and not a subspecies is because what others is the other that we can breed with that's on this planet by its own definition. And if there is something, some of us may want to know. I don't care. I'm fine with what I got. Okay. Race does exist on a social level. It's also on a scientific terminology level, but it's not as it's being used in our society. Because social level is not a real thing. It is a man-made concept, much like race. Society can change and must, but the scientific facts, when we finally learn them through trial and error, those aren't changing for us. Ethnic groups are the correct term. The experts and the United Nations has tried to get us to learn. Race is ignorant of the scientific facts of life. No matter who is talking, I cringe at the use of the word, because it does not mean what people thinks it means. And if it could be a racist talking, it could be, well, everyone to different types fit that definition right there. But once that word comes out, I kind of shut down because I'm like, oh, and you're not smart enough to understand that word. Or they're feeding into the whole bullshit. So on with this. Johann Blumenbach lived between 1752 and 1840. Can't really give an exact date for when these beliefs came out because he kind of did a bunch of papers throughout his life. He divided the species into 5 races. In 1779, later founded a crania research, description of human skulls, at 1793 till 1795. Following him was Louis Agassiz' racial definitions. In 1807 to 1873, Agassiz was specifically a believer and advocate that race came from separate origins, separate creation stories. They were all endowed with unequal attributes and could be classified into specific climate zones, in the same way he felt other animals and plants could be classified. Specifically, separate creations. Everyone gets their own origin? Damn it, I wanted the monkey one. But it's taken. I guess it's divine creation for me. Arthur D. Gobineau, 1816 to 1882, came to believe that race created culture, arguing that distinctions between the three, black, white, yellow races, were natural barriers and that race mixing breaks these barriers and leads to chaos. He classified the Middle East, Central Asia, and Indian subcontinents, North Africa, and southern France as racially mixed. Well, were the remaining nations too ugly? No one wanted to breed with them? Okay, following that was Thomas Huxley's racial definition. He broke it into 12 races, 3 of which were Mongolian. Guess one was not enough. What kind of science are these guys using? That guy couldn't even handle counting. Then we have Charles Darwin. 1871, a later Darwin publication, stated within the heated debates between the advocates of monogeny, I'm hoping I get that right, who held that all races came from a common ancestor, and advocates of polygeny, who held that the races were separately created. His beliefs was that non-white races were equal in regards to their intellectual capacity as the white races, a belief that had been strongly disputed by scientists, as those one I listed above. By the late 1860s, however, Darwin's theory of evolution had been thought to be compatible with the polygenist theory. Darwin shut that down. He used the descent of man to disprove the polygenist theory and end the debate between the polygeny and monogeny once and for all. Darwin also used it to disprove other hypotheses about racial differences that had been persisting since the time of ancient Greece. For example, that the difference in skin color and body constitution occurred because of different geographical and climates. Darwin sought to demonstrate that the physical characteristics that were being used to define race for centuries were superficial and had no utility for survival. Darwin's attitudes of what race was and how it developed in the human species are attributed to 2 assertions. That all human beings, regardless of race, share a single common ancestor, and phenotypical racial differences are superficially selected and have no survival value. Given these 2 beliefs, some believe Darwin to have established monogenism as the dominant paradigm for racial ancestry, and to have defeated the scientific racial practice by Morton, Knott, and Agassiz, as well as notions that were existing of natural racial hierarchy and reflected inborn differences, and measured of value between the human races. What the hell happened? It seemed that the obvious truth was out there, just people did not want to know it. Why is it that I never heard a single thing about this in high school? I had a small mention even of this stuff. Education is to blame. They still argue over prayer in school, but they don't argue for the truth in education. Decline of quality so-called racial studies after 1930. Julian Huxley, A.C. Hayden, 1887 to 1975, he believed that the color of blood, the percentage of white and black blood that a person had, would determine a person's mental capacity, moral probity, and social behavior. Blood also determined how individuals should be treated by society. He had a proponent of racial inequality and segregation. No surprise they had called the syphilis bad blood to the blacks they killed in the Tuskegee experiments. By 1930, Huxley's ideas on race and inherent intellectual capacity of human groups became more liberal. By the mid-90s, Huxley had considered, or was considered, one of the leading anti-racists and committed much of his time and efforts to publications that fight against Nazism. Well, that would get anyone's attention. In interest, how intelligent thought and education defeat ignorance. Alfred Court Hayden, 1855 to 1940. He proposed that humankind could be divided up into major and minor subspecies. They believed that races were a classification based upon hereditary traits that should not, by nature, be used to condemn or deem inferior to another group. Like most of their peers, they continue to maintain a distinction between the social meaning of race and the scientific study of race. It's amazing the denial these scientists went through as they tried to make ignorant concepts seem intelligent. From a scientific standpoint, they were willing to accept that concepts of superiority and inferiority did not exist. But from a social standpoint, they continued to believe that racial differences were significant. For example, they argued that genetic difference between groups were functional important for certain jobs or tasks. So close yet so far. Ashley Montagu, 1905 to 1999, was a British American anthropologist. In 1942, he made a strong effort to have the word race replaced by ethnic group by publishing a book, Man's Most Dangerous Myth, The Fallacy of Race. 1942, and the average person in 2000 still has no clue. UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, was established November 16, 1945, in the wake of the genocide of Nazism. Gets everyone's blood moving, doesn't it? The first of these statements on race was the race question, and was issued on July 18, 1950. The statement included both a rejection of scientific basis for theories of racial hierarchies and a moral condemnation of racism. Its first statement suggested, in particular, to drop the term race altogether. The 1950 statement was most concerned with dispelling the notion of race as a species, but did not reject the idea of a biological basis of racial categories. Instead, it defined the concept of race in terms as a population defined by certain anatomical and physiological characteristics, as being divergent from other populations. It gives the examples of the Caucasian, the Mongoloid, and the Negroid races. The statement maintains that there are no pure races, and that biological variability was as great within any race as between any other race. It argues that there is no scientific basis for believing that there are any innate differences in intellectual, psychological, or emotional potentials among races. They're like still fighting to keep it separate though, and they brought up those three fake races again. The 1951 statement focused on race as a biological heuristic that could serve as a basis for evolutionary studies of human population. It considered the existing races to be a result of such evolutionary process throughout human history. It also maintained that equality of opportunity and equality in law in no way depend as ethical principles upon the assertion that human beings are in fact equal in endowment. 1964, a new commission was formed to draft a third statement, titled Proposal on Biological Aspect of Race. There is no national, religious, or geographical, linguistic, or cultural group which constitutes a race, ipso facto. The concept of race is purely biological. Biological data given above stand in open contradiction to the tenets of racism. Pure racist theories can in no way pretend to have any scientific foundation. In 1967, a new committee was assembled, including representatives of the social science, sociologists, lawyers, ethnographers, and geneticists, to draft a statement covering the social, ethical, and philosophical aspects of the problem. This statement was the first to prove a definition of racism: anti-social belief and acts which are based upon the fallacy that discriminatory intergroup relations are justifiable on biological grounds. Later on in 1978, the General Assembly of the UNESCO considered the four previous statements and published a collective declaration on race and racial prejudice. All humans belong to a single subspecies. All people, or as I like said on that one, species or race, whatever. All people of the world possess equal facilities for attaining the highest level in intellectual, technical, social, economical, cultural, and political development. The difference between the achievement of the different people are entirely attributed to geographical, historical, political, economic, social, and cultural factors. Any theory which involves the claim that racial or ethnic groups are inherently superior or inferior, thus implying that some would be entitled to dominate and eliminate others presumed to be inferior, or which bases value judgment on racial differentiation, has no scientific foundation and is contrary to the moral and ethical principles of humanity. Do you know why a lot of these idiots through history could not agree? Because there is only one race, humans. And they all wanted to be special. There were more races, theoretically about 10, such as the Neanderthal. But that was a separate race, although a close one, very close, like horses and donkeys. There was some breeding. But the rest, all human. No matter what color, hair, eyes, we are all the same race. Here's the proof how totally ignorant the Nazis were. The guy in charge of the Nazi parties for the racial question was a chicken rancher. All chickens are the same race. All of them. You know this because they can all breed. No crows breeding with the chickens. Didn't work. But they were ignorant of this, I guess, because all humans can breed with no difference in viability of the baby between no matter what color of the parents, because they are all of the same race or species. Oh, and just so the loyal Nazi party out there, let me beat it into the rusty nail into the coffin for you. Jewish is a religion, like Christian, not determinable by DNA. I've heard that they can determine by where their genes came from to be tracked back to. So if they are from Israel or its locations at any time in history, even if it was the law to be of a certain religion, there's no proof that they were. And to say otherwise is simply an ignorant assumption. To that I say I do not believe everyone living in the Vatican is a Christian. So, just they're from an area doesn't mean they're of the religion. That's a whole different issue we're not going to get. Some say that they are of a different race. They're only feeding these trolls, you see. They're creating a small group that doesn't exist, and the small group will be attacked. Some will even go further and say that the racism that they want is to breed for certain traits, like white. They want to purify the genetic traits available to what they call superior. Anyone out there ever have a purebred dog? Comment below on how stupid they were. Mutts were always better dogs. And humans? I think it is obvious. All the royal families are inbred. There is nothing in nature that is enhanced by breeding with your own family. It weakens the genetics. The children get sick, hemophiliac, brain dead, purebreds. Gotta have me some of them. In my opinion, the top 10% of the US, I don't travel around anymore, are genetically a waste. Not a race, although they have tried. Purification leads to genetic death. Variation leads to evolution. The main thing to remember, color does not separate us. It's money. Ignore racism. It's only the mask of the true problem, light skin and dark. They all have poor people as well as rich. Protected overclass. If someone is controlling your life, ask yourself, does it matter if they're light or dark skinned? It shouldn't. They should shut up. But if it does matter to you, ask yourself why. Some say that they need to study race to determine our future. It's simple, Nimrod. We will become one. We hope if you don't like it, make a rocket and get off the planet. Then you can be someone else's immigrants and see how you like it. Final note. The government should never ask race on any application anywhere. If they do, just enter human. They'll get the idea someday. Any information they gather in these questionnaire is racist by definition of the questionnaire. So don't play their game. Or race, we're all human. Get used to it.